Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of abrupt endings, listening to songs that just stop at the end of them. Today we're going to be checking out a song from St. Vincent. This one is called Surgeon, and it comes off of their Strange Mercy album. Let's dive into it, see what St. Vincent is bringing to the table today. Interesting texture layering there. The vocals, the synth, and maybe even digitized vocals.
I spent the summer on my back, another attack, staying just to get along, get along, get along. Turn off the TV, wait in bed, a blue and a red, a little something to get along, get along, get along, get along, get along, get along. Best find a surgeon.
Yeah, interesting rhythmic flow there.
Cut me open. Best find a surgeon. Come cut
So we have a strong bass, very straightforward beats in the background. And there's always some eerie sound on the outskirts of everything.
Dressing, I'm dressing for the wall. If mother calls, she knows well we don't get along, get along, get along. I tell the mailman never you mind.
The synths on the outside holding the chord progression.
And for him to just get along, get along, get along, get along, get along, get along. Best find
Yeah, so the third get along in each of those groups is slightly rushed against the rest of. What is this?
Come cut me open.
It's like a bend or a slide into.
Come cut me
Lots of microtonality within there.
Best find a surgeon. Come cut me open. 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 Best find a surgeon. Come cut me open.
Yeah, slight discrepancy between the two vocal stems there. There too, it's like the quarter of a beat. Low little bit of grit coming in. Yeah, Artistically interesting. I don't know if it's something I'd return to. As far as St. Vincent goes, this one's a bit more out there compared to what I've heard. And she's always been a bit more of an art pop artist to begin with, pushing the realms of a poppy sound. But I find this one to be a bit too atonal for me, harmonically noisy. But there's a lot to dig into, so I do greatly appreciate what's going on, even if it isn't something I want to return to. The first thing is tension, duality of the song. There are several pieces in almost every section that present a more traditional popish sound, usually some sort of bass line that walks us forward, a steady drum beat, maybe some ornamental sounds or a synth sitting on the outside of the song presenting a drone possibly, or chord progression. These are more foundational ideas that don't really push against the status quo at all. But then there's just as many ideas that do. Stuff that's supposed to be harmonically, rhythmically, or melodically intense, or create elements of tension within the song. They push against this very palatable, uh, traditional sound of the track. It's what gives it its characteristic noisiness and unsettling feeling throughout. And sometimes this can even be modulated upon within an idea, where an instrument might start out more consonant and palatable and transform into something more noisy and tense. One of these sounds is that that sort of hump where we take a pitch, slide up a little bit, and then slide down into the second note. What happens here is we catch all of the microtonal pitches between those three notes. We kind of we scoop into and out of it, and so we catch all of the tones, the pitches between the three main pitches that we're aiming for, and they move rather quickly. I think that for the most part, it is probably something that is going to sound fine to most people. It's going to be more the timbre of the instrument being a bit sharper and narrow. When I create the sound, I really have to tighten up my muscles and kind of even push a little bit into a nasally area, pushing into the upper palate, the soft palate, in order to create that sound. Um, but it's thin, it's narrow, and we also have the microtonality. But like I've mentioned in the past, if you're going to introduce notes that clash with the notes that you're playing, it's best to do it quickly. Jazz soloists do this frequently by introducing a single note and then quickly moving off of it to get the spice of that tone within this chord or key without really hearing too much of the clashing. You don't really hold on to those notes because it draws attention to how it doesn't fit. That's sort of what's happening here too. The slide is really quick. We move through the three key notes fast. And so all of the pitches in between, we don't really get to hear too much of. We end up hearing more of the slide, but for some reason, maybe it is because of the timbre of the instrument, I get a lot of tension out of that harmonically. I have a hyper focus on what is happening there. It's almost as if time slows down at the beginning of that run for me, and I can hear how all those microtones end up playing against most of what's going on harmonically. It is a very grating sound to me in a lot of ways. But after that, we have a couple of notes. Actually, it is just a couple of notes there. It's the same note, I think, even, or same pitch on each note. That's more consonant with everything. So that idea in itself fluctuates between tension and rest. Another one that I really liked was the synthesizer at the end of the track with the heavy, heavy vibrato. I don't know if this guy was just going wild on the mod wheel, um, or if it was just baked in a programmed vibrato to it. Very wide, but it starts off, it is a high pitched, kind of narrow sound cutting through the mix entirely. It does have a bit of edge to it. And by edge, both the ability to cut through the sound sonically, but also I think having a bit of stress to the sound. There's a buzz and a sharpness to it. But it also starts out rather consonant, being a solo lead instrument here. But it eventually climbs in pitch until it just hangs onto a drone. A very tense drone that doesn't really match anything that's going on harmonically. It introduces a lot of harmonic instability and dissonance. And we have rising layers. We're bringing back some ideas. In fact, that slide scoop thing comes back here. The entire end of the song feels very tense to me, very uneasy. This was an instrument that, despite having a bit of edge to it, was complementing the song, compositionally at least, and evolved into this new idea that just brings tension and instability to the track. It allows the song to end on a note of terror, or maybe a better word might be alarm. It leaves, though, we have a couple bars of somewhat normalcy and then the abrupt ending. That duality is present all throughout the track. This is a song that I think is very easy to groove to. There's a lot of palatable elements to it, but you don't even have to look that far past the surface to realize that something isn't right, and something is consistently not right across the track. It's just that whatever's raising that red flag, it changes its position. Someone different is carrying it. The warning, the caution is always there. You just might not know where to look for it. That's what I feel in this song. It is tense and anxious but cool on the surface until it isn't. Total anxiety attack at the end, back for a moment of calm. Or at least calm on the surface. I do appreciate the plethora of voices in here, though. I noticed right off the bat that there's a vocal stack that started the song off that had a mix of acoustic clean vocals and digitized vocals, as well as, I'm going to assume, formant shifted vocals, which is pitch shifted, getting some of those lower tones in there, but kind of having that obvious digital feeling to the pitch correction on it. It creates an interesting stack of textures more than anything else. There is still the harmonic thing going on there where all these different pitches are coming together to form a chord, but also all the pitches feel different. The instrumentation feels different. I think they all are St. Vincent on vocals. There's also some synthesizers snuck in here for some extra texture layering. All in all, though, it's one part divided by 5 or 6 different lines. This is sort of what I see through a lot of this song, is hidden layering. I think you can usually find the bass, the drums, the vocals, and 1 or 2 ornamental things going on. Give or take 5 to 6 lines is pretty typical for a section in this track, but I think you'd be surprised to know that there's probably closer to 10 or so that I can hear, probably more that's being disguised into the mix. On top of that, as, I don't know, I feel like modern pop, when did this come out? I mean, 2011, I'd still say that's modern-ish. Modern pop has tons of layers to it. It's all the little bits that are going to take you from 90% to 100. All of that, that's the point where you're spending hours to make micro adjustments that most people aren't going to hear, but you absolutely know makes it better. And like I said, I can hear probably 9 to 10 layers in some of these sections. There's a lot going on, but a lot of it is disguised to a lot of texture layering. There's some really cool instruments being propped up in here. I don't know what they are. I can't quite hear them clearly enough to say, oh, that's definitely, this instrument, or maybe emulating this instrument, since I think most of this is synthesizer. But it's one of those things that I've come to appreciate in this type of music, is that while most of these sections, like I said, on the surface, You got some sort of harmonic thing, usually the bass, rhythm thing, usually the drums, lead, usually the vocals, and ornamental to spice things up, all sorts of other synth sounds, sometimes additional vocal work. But it's so much more than that. And it's what creates the atmospheres that are, once again, bringing up the concept of duality, dense yet open. There's a lot going on in this song, but it doesn't feel claustrophobic. Part of this is going to be the very large sound sphere of the track, but the other part is going to be impressive layering and disguising techniques, where with like something like post metal, the layering is all done to be additive. Every new layer is part of building the wall of sound. So you don't really want to disguise them. You want to bring them into the forefront. Everything needs to make the song sound big and take up space. The opposite is true here. A new sound needs to be felt, but not seen. It's kind of a strange way to perceive it. It needs to influence the sound of the song, the atmosphere of it, but it doesn't necessarily need to have its space being felt like it's taken up. The song still needs to feel airy despite having a lot of elements to it. I don't know what's going on there. I'm not a producer. I don't even know where to begin with attempting to emulate this, but whatever's going on, it's quite impressive to me and I'm picking up on it. And I love that feeling of densely layered, lots of things going on, but not feeling claustrophobic, not really feeling hyper complex either. It still is a spacious song with plenty of room for everything. In fact, there's so much room that I could easily see another two or three instruments being added to it without it feeling cluttered. It would still feel balanced in ways. I find that to be really impressive. And this kind of leans into my feeling of the song. I mentioned that it is generally positive, easy to digest, but tense in places. And if you're paying attention to it, it's uneasy throughout. But it's also spacious. There's room to grow in here. There's room for change. There's room to move. It's a roomy track that feels excited and uneasy. Now, excitement and unease, they go hand in hand with any sort of new scary thing, I suppose. Skydiving, if you've never done it, actually, probably if you still have done it, it probably is a mix of unease and excitement. Any sort of thrill like that is a combination of it. I mean, even something a little more tame than skydiving, but even going on roller coasters, that's a place I can speak from. There's that anxiety sitting in the car waiting for it to go, or maybe even climbing that first big hill before the first drop. It's tense, it's kind of scary, but it's exciting too. But the song feels a little dangerous as well. But it feels like it's accepting all of this. There's room for it. It doesn't feel claustrophobic. It doesn't feel like the walls are closing in. It still feels safe and comfortable despite the tension, despite the alarms going off. It's almost as if the positivity is outweighing all of it. Maybe it is a song about overcoming your fears, although I don't know how that could come from the phrase surgeon, but I don't know. Maybe the lyrics could help lead into that. Let me check those out real quick. We'll come back to this idea of theme and what the song is saying and see if any of these vague ideas I have about the song's emotional qualities might ring through those. I'm curious what everyone else's take is on this because it seems rather clear to me, or at least I have what I think is a fully supported idea of what the song is saying lyrically, but I have a tough time bringing that back to the music. It seemed to be about somebody battling depression and wanting to possibly get through it. We'll see why I'm a little iffy on that. Verse 1, I spent the summer on my back, another attack. Stay in just to get along. Turn off the TV, wait in bed, a blue and a red, a little something to get along. So they spent the whole summer laying on their bed, having panic attacks, not really wanting to leave the house, maybe not being, maybe it wasn't possible to leave the house. They turn off the TV, probably just sitting on the couch. They go to wade in bed, another stationary action. A blue and a red, something to get along, I'm going to assume is medication of some sort. Verse 2 says dressing and undressing for the wall, showing that they're not actually going anywhere. The only one who sees them changing clothes are the four walls of their room. It says, if mother calls, she knows well that we don't get along. I'll tell the mailman, never you mind, I'll sift through the piles, and for him to just get along. So she's not picking up her mail either. The mailman just places a pile in it. She says, I'll get to it eventually, but she just doesn't have the energy. Another element of depression. Now, the thing where it says at the beginning, I spent the summer on my back, another attack, I assume that's an anxiety attack, which might be a compound thing that goes with the depression. Nothing else in the song really, I think, leads to showcasing anxiety. A lot of it just looks like depression to me, but maybe there is something in here that I'm missing. The chorus simply has one line: best, finest surgeon, come cut me open. We hear that line 15, 16 times in this track. That is all of the lyrics. My guess here is that the surgeon would cut them open and figure out what's wrong and fix it, as that's what a surgeon does. They do surgery. Usually, though, you'll get your diagnosis first and then your surgeon will fix it later. But the idea is, I think, that she has this problem. It doesn't allow her to have a life. She sits around at home, does nothing, and feels bad about it. I mean, that's depression. I mean, dude, doing nothing and then getting mad that you've done nothing is one of depression's main cycles, but you just don't have the energy to do anything else. It's so easy to get caught up in destructive cycles. We also see that she doesn't have much of a social structure either. Her mother calls, but they don't get along, and no one else shows up other than the mailman, who does show some concern, but she urges them just to mind their own business. I'll get to it when I get to it, bro. Just carry on your day, right? Just get along is what she says. Just go do your thing. So the only hope then would be medical intervention. And that's what she hopes for, maybe dreams for. But the thing with depression is that surgery is usually not what works, which is where my curiosity comes into this. What's up with the alarm sound? What's up with the unease in this song? It's an interesting showcasing, I think, of depression, constant tension and anxiety, although also she does mention she has what I assumed was an anxiety attack. So the narrator, I think the music is supposed to represent the narrator's mind, their mental state, and where they are at any point. It is spacious because there's plenty of things to do, maybe plenty of goals, plenty of tasks they would like to do, but they never get around to it. It isn't necessarily that the narrator's plate is full. They haven't taken on more than they could do if they weren't depressed. It's simply that they don't have the energy to do anything at all. And so the song is kind of empty because their life is kind of empty, but it's very layered because their life is very intense to them. They have a lot of anxiety due to their depression and possibly anxiety attacks that come from the depression. It still just brings me back to the chorus then and the alarm at the end. I don't have a strong interpretation of what these two might mean. Like I said, the surgeon thing I kind of get, but it's an interesting direction to go then, I think, other than just a simple hope. Not necessarily one based in reality, but I just wish someone could fix me. It might be the idea there. The best surgeon, just cut me open and fix me. Where surgeon is just someone who could fix this, rather than a literal surgeon. The alarm might just be an anxiety attack then. Rising intensity that leads to a very strong response. And thus, when it goes away and the song just kicks back into normal, that's the cycle of life. Depression, fatigue, anxiety. The loop, the cycle never ends. And that's why they make such an absurd wish, just anything to get out of this. Maybe that's what's going on with this one, but maybe that's just my interpretation. Let me know yours. What did you think of St. Vincent's Surgeon? Did you enjoy it? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe if I misspoke about something, put all of that, including your own interpretations and perspectives and any other thoughts you have, down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, there's a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.